Let me just throw out that at any time, if you have a question or you want to discuss something, just hey, jump right in. And this isn't a lecture by any means. This is something that I'm hopeful will be helpful to people. And if it's something that you have some questions on, or if you want to get a hold of me later, like I've told Lindsay in the chamber, I'm doing this as a volunteer. I'd be happy to help anybody I can at no charge. And we just need to all pull together and make sure we're doing what we can to help our neighbors. And so I'm doing that the best I can in this regard. So hopefully this will be helpful to you. I presented this brief to a lot of different organizations and a lot of different reflections. I've tailored it somewhat for McCall, hoping that some of this will speak to you. Some of the things that we'll talk about or that I'll share with you today may not apply to you. Every business is unique. In fact, that's probably the first thing that people in the chamber or the local leadership in the city or the county need to know is that it's not a one-size-fits-all. Some people will want to open up their business as soon as possible. Other people will want to wait because they have the ability to do that. Some people have kept on their employees. Some people have let their employees go. Some people are struggling and they may not be ever able to open their business up again. Other people are seeing this as an opportunity. So everybody's got their own story, and some of this will apply to your story and some of it won't. Again, the most important thing here is to critically think. And there is a fine line, interestingly enough, between critical thinking and cynical thinking. And you want to make sure you're on the right side of that line. It's really, really important as business owners and as leaders, as moms and dads, as friends, to be critical thinkers. Make sure you're thinking well about the context you've been handed, but don't become cynical. It's easy to do, believe me. I know, I'm speaking to myself here. It's easy to become cynical when things seem to be so depressing and things seem to be kind of going in such a negative direction. But this is the time, this is the moment for leaders, for parents, for friends to really step up and be that kind of person that gets us through this storm. So that's what some of this is about. It's kind of twofold. I've talked to several folks about this, especially Lindsay, that this is a two-sided coin. So on one side of the coin, as business owners, you have all the levers that you need to pull to try to get back to a level of profitability, to keep your doors open, to keep your employees paid, to develop, and maintain your future path as a business. But the other side of that coin is the people side of that coin. And that is that you have to take care of the people around you. And that's at home, it's at work, and it's in your community. And I don't believe you can be an effective leader and only work one side of that coin as a business owner. You have to work both sides of that coin. And that's the way this is presented. So I'm going to talk to you today about some big picture strategic things to take into account during what's called crisis action planning. And then I'll break it down into some things that I would recommend you, if you're not already doing right now, you need to start doing immediately. And that will hopefully get you through kind of some of the phases that we're in. And then I'll leave you with a real kind of short 3-minute video that's just my way of saying it's all going to be okay. We're going to get through this. It's all going to be good. So there are 3 strategic phases that you're in, and this applies to crisis action planning, and that's where we're at right now. The current phase, we've already actually been in and left. We've started into the transition phase, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And then there's a piece of this called the future phase, where you stop and take a deep breath and say, okay, what lessons have I learned from this that will give me a better business going forward, maybe be better prepared as we look into the future and get back to some level of routine again. So I'll take just a few minutes to break these down. And the most important part of this is asking the right questions. You've got to ask the right questions as a business owner or as a community leader. The questions you ask will determine the answers you get, and those answers should lead to some level of guidance in terms of behavior or actions going forward. It all starts with the questions that you ask. So, for example, when I worked with a number of companies, and 2 months ago, I sent out all kinds of guidance before there was any government, SBA loans that were coming out. And one of the comments in there was, you can expect the government's going to step in here. And when they do, you need to be prepared for that. And here's 6 things you need to have in your accounting cookie jar ready to send so that you can get into this SBA, because it's going to be short-lived and there won't be enough money. Only 5% of the small businesses in the country got any money at this point, which is not a really good good number. But my point is that was because there was a strategy that was already unfolding on the horizon. So a lot of these current questions that we have should have already been answered. And most business owners and leaders in the community will look at this and say, yeah, we've done a pretty good job of chewing through these things. And maybe it's been over a cold beverage at night. Maybe it's been on a long walk with your spouse or your friend or wherever it happened to be. But most of these 4 questions in the current context have probably been answered. So when would you normally start this? These are the questions you should have been asking, for example, maybe the 1st of February. So you're noticing that there's something on the horizon and something doesn't look right, and how is this going to affect me? And immediately you go into the zone of, okay, what's the current context and how might it affect my business model and my leadership going forward? And as you unfold these questions, obviously the answers, the information become more salient. And as it does, you begin to have a much clearer picture of what the context is that you're dealing with. And I would imagine everybody here has pretty good answers for most of these questions already. They may not be great answers, they may be difficult answers, but they probably have all been thought about. And what we've really done is we've transitioned into this point at this time is we're now in transition. You could see one of the big indicators of transition was that we began to have some public protests. And we will see that more and more and more. As soon as politicians begin to see that their opinions are receiving some negative input, they will begin to change their actions and behavior. That's politics, right? And up to this point, but prior to the transition, all of the push from the media and from communities was that you had to close things down. You had to protect people. And if you weren't, you were publicly assailed for it. If you decided you were going to blow it off for some reason, you were kind of publicly assailed for it. So politicians and leaders, for the most part, we can debate whether they did it right or how they did it or the timing, but they kind of succumbed to that pressure. Well, one of the transition points that says we're kind of out of the current coronavirus and we're transitioning into the transition from the coronavirus, which will probably last around 60 days. I think at least the heartbeat or the heart of the transition will last about 60 days, is that you start seeing some protest. You already immediately, even today, you saw Governor Little start saying, well, we're probably going to be opening up. Some businesses can do some things now to open up. This is called the transition time. And I will tell you, between all 3 phases running a business, the transition out of a crisis is always the most difficult time. You'd think intuitively that it's the most difficult thing is getting into it. Well, it wasn't difficult to get into where we are. All the decisions were completely out of your control. So you didn't get to make any decisions. You just had to respond. You were on the defense. Now that's changed. Now you have some light of offense in your business model. And during transition, how you go about transitioning will determine to a large measure how successful you are and kind of how much money it takes you to do it as well. So these are the questions that you need to begin to ask yourself. That first question, that's different for McCall than it is for Boise, because Boise is not a resort town. That's different for McCall than it is for somebody on the East Coast that's on the beach. They have to have people on the beach. They can have people on the beach without necessarily being in a resort town. So many different contextual characteristics. The transition has to be tailored to where you are and what your context is. That second one is really important. In fact, in that meeting that we had this morning with some of the city leaders, it was very clear that people are beginning to realize, wow, there are new challenges that are coming out now that we need to really address. So we're open, we're more than just essential workers, but we're not all the way open, and we can't really have people inside our restaurant, but we can have people outside. And what kind of sanitation do I have to deal with? And all of these things are transitionary questions that you have to answer. And the third one here, this third line is perhaps the most difficult one to answer. If I was assisting you in a process going forward, we'd spend a lot of time on that one. And I would specifically, ask those questions. What are those things that you absolutely must do as a business owner right now? If you knew that within the next 7 to 14 days, you're going to be open for business, what must you do? And then I'd ask you, okay, well, what are some things you should do? You can still open without doing them, but what are the things you should do? And then finally, what are some of the things that you might do? Those things you might like to do, but probably not on the priority list, something you would do immediately. That's the kind of discussions you need to have with yourself, with your business partners, maybe even with your trusted employees as well. And then finally, this is an interesting question. We won't know the answer to a lot of this. The last question, what new developed operations? I can tell you that interestingly enough, there are a lot of restaurants that were brick and mortar that have found that they're turning a profit with drive up. Now that may not be your business. I can tell you locally, there's some places that they don't ever have to go food ever. They never did it. And now they literally have lines around the corner of people that called in orders and they're waiting in their cars to have it delivered to them. Now it won't last that way as soon as you can get into the restaurant, but their restaurant has 25 tables. They can only, it's an Italian restaurant that has wine and nice meals. And, my wife and I go in and we sit for, sometimes an hour, maybe more, having a really nice dinner. Well, these people come and get their meals and they're gone in their car. They're able to put out twice the amount of lasagna on a night than they would under normal conditions. Well, they've made it pretty clear they think they're going to have some element of that continue. I know that there was a comment here by the gentleman who has the jewelry store that you've got a new online system. We're going to talk a little bit about that. One of the positive things that came out of this is people need to do some deep critical thinking about what can we do to expand our revenue base beyond just brick and mortar. And the internet is here, and if you're not plugged into it, service oriented is a little difficult to do, but whether it's delivery online or it's selling your goods, over the internet, that's an important thing that's come out of this as well. So some of those things that we've learned, it may very well be, and I hate to say this, but this is a discussion that's happening in some strategic levels, that the norm we have in America of shaking hands, it may die as much as the norm of littering died back in the 50s, or the norm that we developed to wear seatbelts back in the 80s. So those norms can change when there's enough of a crisis to make them change. And that may be something that lingers as well. And then the future piece of this is, and I really will focus on the one area, and that's the third question. I mean, we could get into this deeper, and maybe we'll even do this some more down the road, maybe in the next 45 or 60 days when this becomes more applicable. But the key is, don't think, okay, we're getting back to normal, because if you do, you will psychologically begin to develop your own what's called the normal bias, and that is you don't want to look at things that are negative. You only want to look at things that are positive. And while that's okay, in fact, I'll encourage you at the end of this to be very optimistic people. The key is, don't make lessons learned from this challenge lessons lost, because something else will happen in the future that's unexpected. And I ask this question to kind of conclude the future phase here. If you knew 3 or 4 months ago that this was coming, you were in a time machine and you knew that this was going to happen, and 4 months ago, what would you have done different to prepare for this? What a great question. Because if you can then answer that now, you're not right now, you got other things to do in the transition phase, but down the road, if you can begin to ask that question and seriously wrap your head around it, you may find that your business model needs to take some other more precautionary or preparatory steps to be better prepared as a business owner for these things, so that you can weather these storms a little better. That would be one example of the future piece. Does all this make sense so far? Good. All right. So here are some business levers. These are some things that I believe you need, if you haven't already done, you should do tomorrow morning. Immediate actions. And this, again, this is all in reference to the transition phase. Some of you, many of you, lease your building from other people in McCall, or from somebody who lives in Boise, or who knows, some people just, they rent. Some people this doesn't apply to, you own your own building. But you need to have a serious conversation with them, because there's a very high probability right now across the country that people who have businesses, people who are leasing out space, are going to find they have a lot of empty space. a lot. They're talking about millions of small businesses closing their doors. Well, this is a supply and demand world. I would get ahead of that curve, and I would call your lease person and say, look, this has been tough on us. I want to stay here. I want to be in this building. I want to have this continued relationship, but I need some relief. Can you give me 90 days of 50% lease? Can you give me this month, off, and then I'll start in next month. I mean, some of you may have already done some of this, but the key is don't be afraid to do that. This is the time to say, what can I do to improve the bottom line of my business model? Coordinate with suppliers, and I like to use this simple example. If you make hamburgers in your business, you may go, all right, the governor's opened things up. I got a good plan to go forward. I'm going to do this. And boom, you call your hamburger supplier and he's like, we're not opening up until the middle of May. Sorry. Or that's your produce or whatever widget you make. You may find out that your suppliers aren't in the same calendar time frame or pace that you're on. So call your suppliers and coordinate with them. And while you're talking to them, see if you can get some reduction in pricing, even if it's temporary. There's a lot of goodwill out there. It makes a lot of sense for them because they want you to stay in business. Try to coordinate and collaborate a success story going forward. We've talked a lot about essential personnel. You're going to have to redefine what that means for your business or for your leadership or for the chamber or for what the post office has to do this. All locations have to do this because it's not going to be everybody. Amazon's a great example. Amazon's warehouse workers were essential employees. You take them away, Amazon shuts down. But their customer service, they weren't essential. But as we transition, Amazon's announcing that their customer service is opening back up, that you can actually get somebody on the line if you call Amazon. Well, they're still not letting everybody back to work yet, but they're redefining what they believe is essential based on the changing context of this transition phase. You need to do the same in whatever area of responsibility you have as well. This is really, really important based on what we heard from the governor this morning. Make sure you truly understand what formal Idaho policy is versus local judgment calls. You probably won't ever be in trouble for being for having a tighter policy than the state has, but you may find yourself at odds a little bit if you loosened everything up and had no sanitation or distancing and said, oh, screw it, I'm just going to open up my restaurant and see what happens. That probably isn't the best way to approach it either. So find out what is mandatory from a policy perspective and then determine what your local judgment opportunities are and continue to do that on a routine basis throughout the transition. Keep things organized in your head that way. I can't speak for every business this way, but I will tell you that there's some science behind the fact that you can increase your profitability by decreasing your pricing. Now, every widget that's out there in the system or every service that's available will have a different, it's called an L over D max, will have a different approach to this. But the idea is that if you could get 10 customers in your door that then become repeat customers that are paying $5 for your widget versus only get 6 customers in the door that are paying $7 for your widget, the key is right now, the single most important thing for businesses is pretty simple. You need people walking through your doors and buying your products. How would you normally get people to do that? Well, you give them a reason to. People will do what they perceive as in their best interest to do. Well, when it comes to purchasing things, they're going to look at pricing. They're going to see there's a discount. There's going to be a post-coronavirus grand opening sale. You're going to hear that all over the country. Well, what part will that play in your business? And use it to your advantage. Use that to be something that can get you back on your feet. If you don't have this already, you're behind the power curve. So if you don't, I would say start thinking about it tonight and get on it tomorrow morning. And what we mean by that is, 1, what products do you need to sanitize your brick and mortar business? 2, stand in the opening of your closed doors inside your restaurant, your shoe shop, or whatever it is that you've got, and look around and say, if I was a customer, what's the probability that I would touch certain things in here? Well, the open doors, the pin that you sign something with, the desks they're leaning against, if it's a product they're going to pick up. So you need to have a codified written plan. How am I going to routinely throughout the day, sanitize these things? Because mark my words, you are going to get 10,000 people from Boise in one weekend when this happens. You know why? Because everybody's got this, four walls are pounding in on me. I got to get out of here. Oh, I know what to do. Let's go to the lake. Let's get out on the boat. Well, when they're there, they're going to go anywhere that's open. They're going to go in and get a burger. They're going to want to buy this. They're going to do things. So have a sanitation place and train your employees what that looks like. Every 15 minutes, all these areas get wiped down. Well, the second piece of that is you've got to make sure you have the product to do that. The time to think about that is not the day you open. Obviously, the time to think about that is now. So what's that plan look like? And I think you may find some great guidance from Jill and the other folks that are leading some of the waves with some of the task forces in the city or in the town there. And there's already great plans out there. You know, like she says, you don't have to reinvent the wheel here. There's things that Jill and her team can provide you right now about how that plan might look. So use that. If you haven't done this already, and I'm assuming most of you have, but if you haven't, call your insurance agents and talk to them about this. Most of this wasn't covered because it wasn't considered a natural disaster. But some things are covered that people are finding out. Unfortunately, insurance companies aren't calling their people and saying, oh, hey, by the way, we covered this. Well, they're going to do what they perceive as in their best interests to do. So call them and say, hey, here's where I am. Here's what I've lost. You may find out there's nothing they can do. Or you may find out they go, well, we do have a provision for spoiled food. Or, well, we do have a provision for the fact that these machines had to be shut off and now those machines need to be repaired. You know, you can imagine what all those possibilities might be. But you should be thinking about your insurance policies and making some contacts to them. I really encourage you to team with other businesses. So you may need every single night or every single morning before you open a deep clean. Well, you could go out and order somebody to do that or pay somebody to do that. Or 3 or 4 businesses could get together and hire 2 or 3 people, teach them exactly what it is you want them to do. And now it's going to be less for all of you to have it done because you've kind of teamed up together on that. There could be lots of things that you could team with other businesses that normally you have autonomy with, but through this time, the teaming will help both businesses. So again, unique to each business, whether that works, but something to think about. I think you should consider extending hours, and one possibility will be you might want to have a specific time frame during the day for those who are higher risk. So maybe you have a time in the evenings or maybe in the early mornings or however it works for people who are over age 65 or maybe over age 70, where they can come in and they're not going to be, bumping in and running into a bunch of people who are 16 and 15 coming up from Boise or whatever. The idea is, don't think that, well, everything's 9 to 5, back to normal. No, it may be that you need to be open a little earlier, you need to stay a little later, and you need to have some unique opportunities for your customers. Again, something for you guys to think about. And then the last thing I would say in this is, I think this is the last one for these levers, is maximize your outdoor options. People have a psychology right now where this inside thing is killing them. People are going for a lot more walks or getting out as much as they can, but it's not like it was, right? The walls are falling in on us. So maximize outdoor options, which really leads us into the next set of levers. Oh, this last one in here is you've done enough of this. If you can meet somebody or talk to somebody and keep your distance in your transition business plan, do that. Please try to limit the phone and email and video conferences. People are sick of it. So what do they need? They need human connection. And that's important, which really leads into this next slide. And I want to be thoughtful of time here, Lindsay, so I'm going to get through this a little quicker. The human levers of this are really, really important. I don't need to go into all of the psychology here, but there are going to be second and third order effects of this isolation that this country hasn't even realized yet. There were people who were already on the edge of the spectrum with depression, anxiety, poor relationships, and this has not helped. Isolation never helps those things. Alcoholism has increased, drug and alcohol uses, domestic violence has increased, suicides. All of those things are realities, but those are all easy to measure. Those are far extremes. Well, we're talking about the people who aren't that extreme, but they're not walking, they're walking with a little bit of a limp. So human levers are super important. So in your businesses, Don't put on the dreary elevator music or whatever you used to have, or maybe none. Put on some upbeat music. Get people walking in and feed their psychology. Yeah, it feels good to be here. It feels good to be at this place of business. This was actually Lindsay's comment. She said, I think fresh flowers are important. Well, get some fresh flowers and put them, not only are they colorful, which is good for the psyche, but they smell great, they look great. Put them all over the place. Get 5 or 6 vases full of full of fresh flowers. Bright colors, whether it's the clothing you wear, whether it's the pictures you have on the wall, whatever you want to bring in to spruce the place up. Think about what you'd give to somebody who'd been in solitary confinement for 6 months. What would they want? Well, all of these things. Feed that psychology, because what you want is a customer to come in, get your product or service, go out and think, wow, that was really nice. I'm going to go back there, or I'm going to tell my friend, or I'm going to tell my neighbor, hey, Bill's shop is open. It's really great. He's doing a great job. So that's the kind of psychology you really need to feed into this moment. Open as many doors and windows as the weather will permit. Again, get out of the I'm in my cubicle mode, stuck at home, and let people know that this is an open space. If you have TVs in the business workplace, turn them off. People don't want to watch any more TV. All right. It's almost become its own form of abuse. If you have employees, this is important. In fact, you need to train your employees, because here's what will happen. You're a waiter at Toll House Pizza, and you go to the table and, hey, how you doing? What can I get you tonight? Somebody goes, oh man, it's so nice to be here. It's been so bad. Did you see what was on the news today? Did you see what Trump said? Did you see what Little said? If they get sucked into negative discussion like that, it creates an entire environment in your establishment that you don't want to be in. So my recommendation is train your employees and yourself to turn that conversation to something that's positive. Hey, I know it's been a tough time, but we're glad you're here. And we're really looking forward to the spring and the summer, and this is gonna all work out great. And man, you look really nice today. You've gotta be positive, because people are really looking hard for that. Again, it's the same thing as that statement there. You've got to engineer that optimism. Don't just assume it will happen. Train your employees to be optimistic. If you're a place that has cubicles, last thing I would want to do is leave my house and go to work and sit in a cubicle all day. So think about how you might have more time in the conference room together, spread out, but more time together. Maybe you go do some meetings on a walk. Somebody said that the other day. I don't know if it was Jill or somebody. Somebody said something about, having your meeting by taking 3 or 4 folks with you and going for a nice walk together. This is important. You've got to determine what unique hardships your employees may have. They don't have your story. Some of them are very troubled financially. Some of them are troubled psychologically. You got to figure that out. And the only way to really do that is to have some one-on-ones with them. Most companies have a place for a break area. Try to set one up outside. Again, get people out of indoors and get them outdoors. This is how you take care of your people. Try to get them outdoors as much as possible. And this, of course, I think is important. It's not just a matter of, okay, customer in, customer out. I got to make these sandwiches, got to get them going. You need to spend some time talking to your customers. People are going to want to really reach out and have what we call social connection. And to do that, you're going to have to engineer some time with your customers. And again, especially if you have young employees, kind of train them how to do that a little bit, have good, healthy conversations. And this is the last one of human leverage. Just don't assume that everybody's okay. Everybody's not okay. Mark my words, there will be the divorce rate's going to go up. There's the last thing a senior in high school wanted to do was spend the last 3 months with mom and dad. There's a lot of troubled things going on there psychologically. So just realize that not everybody's okay. Keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, and do your best part to, give them some sunshine. I like this just as a thought for everybody to have. Whatever business you have, whether this is your home or as parents, whatever it is, you leave an echo. You always leave an echo of who you are personally, as a boss, as an owner, as a manager, as a commissioner, president. You leave your echo as a mom, as a dad, obviously. And that echo is what people think of you when you're not around. What are they saying about you? Well, I would offer to you that there could never be a more important time than right now to really think about what a healthy personal echo looks like. Because although the business model is one side of that coin, the other side of it is the people model. And that applies as much as home as it does with your employees and with your customers. So the first would be have empathy. Realize that not all your customers had the same level of challenges you had. Some had it easier, some had it much, much worse. So have some empathy about that, and to include your employees, your friends, and your kids even. Compassion, compassion is something that has to be practiced because it's easy to get caught up in me. I know that because I do that all the time. I get caught up in me and what I think is important for me. Sometimes I need to stop and take a deep breath and say, you know what? I need to show some compassion for the people around me. And if you don't remind yourself of that, especially during this transition phase, you'll get caught up in it. Humility looks wonderful on a leader. I spent 30 years in the U.S. Air Force. I commanded tens of thousands of troops, and I can tell you the single greatest characteristic of a leader is humility. When you're in the room with somebody else, consider yourself the second most important person there. And that sets a tone and an environment of commitment, loyalty, and trust with your customers, with your employees, with your friends, with your family. I can't overemphasize humility enough. And then finally, optimism. I like to say that right now, everybody's living in a room with a 40-watt bulb. When they walk into your place of business, it needs to be a 100-watt bulb. You need to be that 100-watt bulb in a 40-watt world. You need to be that kind of person that really puts a smile on people's faces. Why? From a business model? Because you want them to be repeat customers. And right now, the single greatest thing you could do for them is not the quality of the hamburger, although that's probably going to be good too. It's that they leave and go, God, man, it's so good to be out. And you don't want them leaving and going, man, he was a bore, or he was upset, or you can tell his business isn't going anywhere. See, that's not what you want to do. It would be an easy trap to fall into. So engineer this into your business model at work and at home. And here's a video I'd like you to just listen to. It's about 3 minutes.
Just running around this morning, trying to get a head start on some things. Decided to stop in and grab a quick coffee. So I'm standing in line, door opens, two gentlemen walk in, stand in line right behind me. They start chatting back and forth, and basically one of them starts talking about how he's had a rough morning. Dealt with some unfortunate things and was basically capping today off as a bad day. Which on the surface is pretty ordinary. We all have rough days, they're real, and this happened to be one of them. But it also happened that as he said this, I was looking at the clock, and it wasn't even 7 a.m. Now, I don't know this guy's situation. It's absolutely none of my business, and I have no intention of delving into it. But internalizing all this sort of got the gears turning in the back of my head. Thinking about how much the day is left. The sun is still coming up as this conversation's happening. So I grabbed my coffee and walked outside, started to think about all the reasons that today is good, which is sort of an awkward activity at first, right? It's not something we consistently walk around talking to ourselves about. But as I gave it some thought, I immediately saw the benefit. Today is good because, for starters, what I'm left with at the end of the day is directly correlated to the decisions that I make throughout the day. Think about how powerful that is in itself, right? You know that feeling when you have a blank page to write or paint, where there's a movie that you've been dying to see, the opening credits first come out, the first note is played at a concert. I'm living that. Right? I am personified opportunity just walking down Beacon Street. If I go left, everything that happens will be because I went left. Think about the power that's contained in that. It opens the door for unlimited opportunities. Today is good because it's right now. I may have made some rough decisions last week, last month, last year, but guess what? They don't exist where I'm going. In fact, they don't exist at all. Maybe yesterday, but not today. Right? They've played their part, they've provided their wisdom, now they can disappear. Today is good because statistically, I shouldn't be here, because so many people were robbed of today, because I get the opportunity to see the sun come up, and because the time will come when that will no longer be the case. Today is good because I have friends and family to share with this ridiculous ride, chock full of ups and downs and all that stuff in between. Right? I'm certainly not capable of sitting here and dissecting the meaning of life, but I do know that whatever it happens to be, it's substantially better when shared, when enjoyed. And today, that's what I'm going to do. Today is good. I'd like to think there's a lot in store down the road. You know, some of it will push me forward, some of it will cause me to stop, make adjustments, but I'll be damned if it will take the joy out of my day. Not today. I have something very different in store, and I plan to see it through. I have the ability, the resources, the determination. I can't think of anything else I need. So coffee in hand, here I go.
All right. Well, that kind of concludes my portion of this, and I'm going to stop sharing this now and open up. If anybody has any questions or comments or anything you want to track on, be happy to spend as much time as Lindsay wants to give us.
Anybody have any questions, Jeff? Thank you so much.
I don't have a question, but I just want to tell you thank you. I thought that presentation was really enlightening and definitely helps us look forward, which I hope we can all do. And it was, it's nice to get out of the mindset of where we have been and where we're going. So thank you for that. It was great.
Cool, great. Thank you. I'm glad it helped.
Well, second that, Jeff. That was an excellent presentation. I appreciate your time on that. And I do have a question. So you have a consulting business, and this is kind of what you do? Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, that's what I do, and I do this for companies across the globe, really, but especially with a lot of nonprofits and government, some universities, that kind of a thing. But you know, when I saw that McCall was obviously hurting, and like a lot of places, McCall has given me and my family so much love and joy through the years. I just woke up one night and thought, man, I wonder if there's any way I could be a part of doing something there. And I found Lindsay. There she was.
Well, that's great. I appreciate it. And what's the name of your company?
Thinkonomics.
Thinkonomics. Okay, great.
Thinkonomics. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Jeff, I don't want to embarrass you, but he does have some of his talks are recorded and on YouTube as well. So if you're looking for more material to watch also.
Yeah, and I was telling, I think Jill and a few other folks, I have a lot of material for small businesses. It's proprietary for me and my business, but I'll give you anything I've got at no charge. I'd be happy to talk to you about your business just from, you know, I'm not a jeweler, I'm not a restaurant owner, but I am a strategist, and I can help maybe just think through some ideas going forward. I'd be happy to do that with anybody that just wants to chat and maybe see if there's a brief that I've given to another client that might be helpful to you as well. And so if there's anything I can do for anybody to kind of help weather this storm, don't hesitate to get a hold of me. I'd be more than happy to chat with you and help any way I can.
A few people have also commented in the chat, and thanks so much, Jeff. Great insights and suggestions. You're appreciated. Great ideas. I'll be buying fresh flowers tomorrow. Great presentation. And George is asking how we get in touch with you. We've recorded this talk as well, so we can send out, and we'll link it up on our YouTube page. And also I will in the chat. Jeff, should I just give them your website or your email?
Yeah, let me do this real quick. Hold on just a second. And this will take care of that. You see the lower left-hand corner there? Can everybody see that? Is that showing up?
Yeah,
Yes.
thinkonomics.com.
Yeah, so you can reach me via, the best way is to reach me via email, and then I can give you my phone number. Just reach out to me via email, and we'll go from there. I will be honest with you, I'm not looking for any business. In fact, I don't have any room for any business. I'm just looking to see if I can volunteer to help some folks that maybe could just use, maybe another team player on their team to work through this next 60 days. So just so you know what my intentions are. Everybody got it?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Does anybody else have any closing comments or questions for Jeff? Okay. Jeff, thank you so much. You're an incredible human, and we're so happy that you came to us. So you've been invaluable. It's also really nice to have an outsider who is not directly immersed in, so it's been nice to have your perspective, because you have a level head about it, because you're not, overtly directly involved. So that has been incredibly beneficial. Well, feel free to go pour another drink or whatever you need to do. Of course, we are running a little behind, but that's okay, because this is fantastic info and insight. We have Melissa Shelby, her debut for the Business Feature of the Week video. So like I said, feel free to stop your video if you need to, pause, go grab something, whatever you need. I forgot my wine opener. We don't have one at the chamber, so I am not able to open my bottle of wine. Rookie mistake. But Melissa Hamilton, if you're on the line and you want to share your screen, we will start with Melissa Shelby. George sees, I love it. Saber. I forgot my machete, George. I don't have that either. I am just failing. Melissa Hamilton, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. And I'm
Okay.
going to go ahead and share the video. Can you hear the music?
Oh, there we go. Yes.
So I thought for the transition, we'd liven up this room a little bit.
I'm still learning all these Zoom techniques, everybody, so.
Okay. And this video turned out to be 20 minutes. So if you need to walk away, feel free to do so and watch it at a later date on the YouTube channel with Chamber. But it is a really fun story. We really had a good time in this interview, so I hope you all enjoy this.
And Melissa is on the line as well.
So at the end, people will have a chance to ask her questions, and I think you have a few announcements about some businesses.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay, so here we go.
Welcome to our third installment of our Business Feature of the Week. Today we have Melissa Shelby Photography on the Zoom call with us, as well as Melissa Hamilton. We have two Melissas, double the trouble. Melissa Hamilton's joining us from the University of Idaho Valley County Extension Office, who's been a great community partner for us to do these incredible business features and take a few minutes each week to get to know one of our members and local businesses more in depth. And we're trying to capitalize on this time we have at home with everybody. So thanks for joining us today, Melissa. As we know, supporting local business is more important and more vital than ever. So we encourage you to don't shop online. Please check out our local businesses. If you think of something that you need to buy, please consider that. Or if you need some ideas, please contact us at the Chamber, and Rachel and I can help you come up with maybe a member that you could purchase that locally from. But if you have not seen Melissa Shelby's photography around town, you may not be using your eyes. She kind of seems to be percolating up everywhere with her gorgeous photos and stunning landscapes. So Melissa, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love this opportunity, this Zoom call newness. This is fun.
I know. It's an adjustment, but there's actually been some positive that's come from it. So do you have a little tip or trick for us today that you wanted to share?
Yes, so we were just talking about all of the Zoom calls or the video calls that people are having now, and how to sort of best light yourself, or different things to do to make you, to help look good for your Zoom call. So we all kind of have different lighting going on. I am in a box with no natural light, so I've had to add a little bit of light myself. The closer I get to the light, actually, the better it is. So I should really be sitting up closer to have my light look a little bit better. And then Melissa Hamilton is actually sitting next to a window, so she has beautiful natural light, and you see the color of it. Yes,
Nice, thank
it
you.
has that warmth from the sun, whereas my light is just a little fluorescent one, and it is not warm at all. So if you are like me and your computer is stuck in a box or a hallway, you might look at some LED lights that are already warm, that have kind of that orange glow to them, if you want to have prettier light like Melissa does with the natural light. But if you really want to have that pretty light, find yourself a window. If you have a laptop or if you're using your phone, just get next to an open window, and if you can get it close to 45 degrees from where you've got your laptop going, then you're probably going to get really nice, pretty even light. And Lindsay, you have really nice even light as well. And I'm not sure what technique you're using, whether you just have a well-lit room. It looks like you've got white walls. And so white walls will help bounce all that light all around and fill in the shadows. But I can show you some ways not to be lit. And that is with a harsh light off to the side. If you're my age, you do not want to do this. But if you can get it closer up to the front and kind of point it down above and behind your computer, that'll help just kind of even things out a little bit better.
Melissa, can we see what it looks like when you don't have any light on your face at all?
Yes. So in my little dark corner, this is what it looks like if I'm doing
Oh, wow. There's a big difference.
Yeah. So my light is just something we picked up at May Hardware. It just came in 2 packs, and it has a little sticker on the back, and you just flip it on and off. Again, it is not daylight balanced, so it has that blue cast to it, which is not ideal, but I'm sure that if you look around, you can find some daylight balanced little LED lights that you can pop around your office space, or just stick on the wall somewhere.
That's those are great things to consider, because I think with all of us using these different apps to communicate with family and friends and work, I have not figured out, I haven't even thought about what works or doesn't work. So thank you. Can you tell us also about this stunning image behind you? And maybe we can talk about why I don't have one.
So this is just one of my photographs, and when we talked about doing the Zoom meeting and sending you guys a photograph, I don't think I've ever used this photo. I've never shared it. It's never made it onto social media, but I have thousands and thousands of photos of McCall. And so one of the areas that I'm kind of moving into, because I've been doing a little bit of branding or social media, I've been supplying social media photos for one of our local brands, that I thought that I would kind of just continue building up that library, and maybe seeing if people are interested in some sort of social media subscription, or just some one-time opportunities to grab a bunch of my photos, and then maybe have some product photos specific to their business included. And so this is one that I just found when we started talking about doing the program, and I thought it would be just a nice basic backdrop without too much going on. So.
It's a beautiful backdrop. I'm really enjoying my lakefront experience here while I shelter in place.
Great.
I know it does. It does kind of have a calming quality to it. So nice selection, and I think that's a great idea to consider, or even the Zoom stock photos for people's virtual background.
Right.
That are scenic to McCall.
Right.
I think we should brainstorm on that idea more.
Yeah, or even if it's a virtual backdrop meeting for Zoom. Yeah, I think that's what you just said. And then I know I'm always struggling to keep our Facebook and social media platforms kind of with decent photography. And I think I'm definitely yeah, that would be a great service. So that's interesting.
Yeah, if anybody's interested in that or needs to kind of beef up their social media feeds, you can always just email me, and we can kind of talk about what might work for your business or whatever you might be interested in.
Thank you, Melissa.
When did you start doing photography? I'm always curious, like, is this a skill set that you've been building since you were 2, or when did this begin for you?
Yeah, so I would say I was probably in junior high. My mom got a Canon AE1 programmable film camera way back in the day, and that's pretty much when I started it. I just started taking photos all the time, and then when I got to college and I was looking around for a job in college, I actually was able to get a job as a photographer. So I would photograph races, like 5K races and fraternity and sorority parties. That's crazy, but a lot of fun. And graduations, all kinds of random things, whatever they needed. And it was still back in the film day. So we would just have a big baggie full of rolls of film, and our cameras didn't autofocus back then, so we just would put liquid paper on our lens for where 5 feet were. And if I was taking a picture of one person, it would be vertical. 2 people would be vertical. As soon as I got 3 people or more, I'd go horizontal, and I was just guesstimating based on how far back I needed to stand and where to put my liquid paper. It was so random. It was great training though, but it was a lot of fun. So that's pretty much how I got started. I actually worked for several years as a contract photographer in college, and then when I got out of college, I went down the track of having kind of corporate jobs. And then when I was in Alaska, I just started really getting back into photography when the switch was made back to digital. So when the early cameras were only 1 megapixel or 5 megapixels. And then once the cameras started getting a little bit more like 6 megapixels, I really made that switch. And once I did digital, I started having clients and friends and families, and I was doing weddings and portraits, and it just kept going and going from there.
Melissa, can you tell us about now? What is kind of your current, what are you shooting now that that's evolved?
Yes. Well, now that I have very active children who I try to keep up with on bikes and on other things, I'm no longer doing weddings. I try to keep my weekends free to chase them around. I do a lot of sports photography now, and I am doing more video and trying to do a little bit more of short stock videos, the 30-second clips or the 15-second clips that you might find on some of the stock agencies out there. And I'm actually doing a lot of real estate photos for town. So primarily it's just sort of the branding, social media photos, the real estate photos, and then video. Different video aspects. And then I still love to chase anything that's moving. So all of the outdoor photos and sports is kind of how I ended up being able to shoot our local sled dog races, which resulted in me being able to go to Alaska and shoot the Iditarod. So those are really like the pinnacle of the things that I love to do.
So when you think about a photograph that you've taken, say in the past year, that you're really proud of, like what excites you when you see a photograph, like where you're like, oh, I got that moment, like tell me about what that looks like.
There's a recent one that I'm thinking of. It's from the Iditarod. It's from the start of the race, and it's just the whole pack of this one team of dogs all in motion, and the snow is blowing, so it was really impossible to focus because of the snow. It was hard to focus because of all the movement and the action, and there's so much going on. And when there's so much going on, but yet you're able to kind of capture it, those are my favorites. I love it when I definitely love the action shots for sure. When there's something moving and happening, and yet it can still somehow you can still get that composition in there.
That's interesting to think about because life is rapid. Life moves so fast. And I think that's what's really cool about photography is the lens can capture that nanosecond of stillness.
Yes, and I never know what that moment is going to look like until I see it.
Until it comes out.
Yeah.
So before all of this craziness broke out, tell us about that incredible, I mean, pretty much once in a lifetime, I'm sure, experience that you got to take for the Iditarod. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we've been doing the Idaho Sled Dog Challenge here for the past 3 years, and Jerry Wortley kind of created that and started it because he was a volunteer with the Iditarod Air Force for I don't even know how many years, but my husband's been volunteering with the Iditarod Air Force for at least 10 years, and that's how he met Jerry. And through our dog sled race here, which has just grown and grown and grown, I met so many of the Alaska race directors and Alaska judges. And I think that first year when we had this crazy weather in Cascade, it was sleeting and raining and the wind was blowing and it was freezing out there. And I traipsed out to the middle of the lake with all my cameras and tripods, and nobody else would go out there. All the judges are just on the side, just like, what are you doing? Why are you going out there? It's blowing sideways. What are you thinking? And I spent hours out there. And I think that is the moment that actually kind of clinched the deal for me being able to go to Alaska. So they all work closely with us in our race so that we can be an Iditarod qualifier. So over the years, we've gotten to know more and more. But the main photographer who's done it for 30 years kind of had it locked down. Nobody else thought they'd ever really be able to creep in there and be a photographer. But last year he decided to step away from the race portion and continue following up with his portrait project that he was doing called The Faces of the Iditarod, where he basically interviews and takes portraits of all of the volunteers. And that opened the door for me and 2 other photographers. And so we really had no idea that we were going to be able to step in and sort of take over something that he's been doing for 30 years. And he was so gracious and helpful to us. And we saw him all over on the race too, because he was doing his portrait project. So it was really definitely the highlight of the year for sure.
It sounds like you have a lot of grit. And that's one thing that I admire about people that do the Iditarod is that they have so much grit.
They do. It's so amazing. And so many of the Iditarod racers have raced here in Idaho. And so I really feel like I've gotten to know many of them more and more. And then being out there on the Iditarod, which is essentially, it's about 1,000 miles. So it's like you take 3 of our races plus a little extra, and that's how long it is. It does take some grit. It's amazing. It is amazing. And those dogs are amazing athletes, and they want to go. Even at 750 miles, they still want to go.
That's my favorite, I think, is seeing in the images I've seen you've taken the sled dogs and they like the energy that comes across in those photos. And they're happy. They're so happy.
They are. They're so they're amazing.
We could talk. I could sit here and talk to you all day about photography and all the incredible things you've shot. We do want to ask you, through these times, things are evolving and changing, but how can the community support you and your business right now?
Well, you actually mentioned shopping locally, and that reminded me of Gallery 55. Because I sell my artwork at Gallery 55. And one of the things that they have done recently is to create an online store. And I don't have any of my work up on there yet, but I know many of the local artists in town already do have some photos, or not photos necessarily, but their style of artwork up on the Gallery 55 website. So I would just say that's a great way. If you need something, if you need a gift, I know there are lots of pieces of pottery and small gifts and handmade notebooks, all kinds of things. So those are opportunities as well. If you can't actually purchase something local in person, you can check out their online store.
That's very true. I think when I get art as a gift, I think it's so neat because it's not something we typically indulge in for ourselves. So that's a great idea. And for summer, weddings, that sort of thing. Where else can we see your images? I know you were up. Are you still at Mountain Java?
You know,
you have been?
Yes, I haven't been in Mountain Java in so long because of the shutdown, but I do. I have quite a few pieces up there, and I also kind of did a spinoff with Mountain Town. I got a website, or I got the domain name Mountain Town when I first moved to town I moved here back in 2013, and I was going to do kind of a travel blog, just all the things I love, all the hikes, places I love to go. And I started kind of converting some of my photographs into little pieces of artwork. And so this is kind of one of them.
Really cool.
Yeah, so they've had the hats up at Mountain Java for probably about a year now. And then I also do some bags that have my artwork on them that are available at Gallery 55. So those are kind of some of the new things that I've been branching out into.
That's really
real quick, can you give us a rundown then of how they can find you, what your
Yeah.
website is?
It's melissashelby.com, and that links you to, you can check out my artwork, the type of things that you see at Gallery 55. You can check out the branding work that I do for some of the local businesses. You can check out the Iditarod. I just linked to that, so that's really fun to look at right now. And then my new website is not up yet, not finalized, but the one for the products, and that will hopefully have the travel tips. That one's going to be mountaintown.us. instead of .com, because somebody else already has it.
Melissa, do you have anything else?
No, just thank you for the opportunity. Oh, wrong Melissa.
No, that's right. This has been really
I
enjoyable.
should have designated either of you.
I'm really happy just to be here with this sunset backdrop. I think this has been my favorite virtual experience, just because I have such a lovely picture behind me. So thank you.
Oh, great. I'm glad you like it. Yeah, and thank you guys for letting me come on and talk a little bit.
Yes, thank you so much, Melissa Shelby and Melissa Hamilton. And you guys, you'll look for the video at our next virtual business after hours, which is actually this week. So thank you.
Thursday at 4 p.m.?
Thursday at 4 p.m. every Thursday, yes.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, and I just wanted to share that picture. I think everybody should be able to see that picture. I got this after I had already created the video, but that is, just the photographer, the faces of the Iditarod. I wanted to kind of show that. I thought that was a great shot of you in action.
That's stunning.
Yeah, it is. It's really a great shot, a great photo. So I'm glad I got to squeeze that in. And I'll go ahead and stop share, and then we should be able to see everybody's lovely faces. And I'll turn it back over to you, Lindsay.
Thank you. Melissa Shelby, thanks for sharing your story with us so we could learn a little bit more about your craft. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Melissa? Is anyone interested in getting that as a backdrop for your Zoom?
And we encouraged Melissa Shelby to put her watermark on it, and she does have her watermark on it, but I would comment, you might want to move it to a different, like you have it down in the bottom left, it might get covered up if people are using it on Zoom. But anyway, it's always good to give credit where credit's due, and this is a stunning, stunning photograph.
Yeah. So you guys can play around with your virtual background on Zoom as well. My computer, I don't think, is high tech enough for me to have a virtual backdrop, as you saw in the image, but it is possible. So Melissa, thank you so much. Do you have anything else to add for us? Let's see if I can find her.
Oh, there we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I wasn't sure which Melissa you were talking to at first.
I know, sorry.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. That was fun to see our conversation all nice and polished and put together. It was fun talking with you ladies the other day.
Thank you for sharing your incredible art with us too.
Thanks.
It's appreciative. So, well, that concludes today. Dr. Jeff Smith, thank you. Melissa, thank you. We will make that talk. Like I said, we'll post it to our YouTube. We'll link it up next week when I send out another email blast. Real quick, tomorrow, the Department of Commerce, Idaho Tourism, Senator Risch, they have declared supporting local gem day tomorrow. So shop online, shop local tomorrow. It's a statewide effort just to promote and prop up businesses right now. That you can find on Facebook as well. And then we did push that out in our email blast last night as well. So just collectively shop local tomorrow. Check out Melissa's website. Next week we'll feature Mountain Monkey Business. So thanks everybody. Appreciate you all joining us.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Yes, good to see you. Enjoy the sunshine now. It stopped snowing and hailing and raining, so we got to go get outside. Thank you.